Giancarlo Fiorella is back with us this morning. He's an investigator with Bellingcat, which is an independent collective of researchers who use open source and social media investigation to track events as they are right now with the war in Ukraine. He's in Amsterdam as we speak to him. And Giancarlo, welcome back to our program. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
A couple of things I want to ask you about in particular. Number one, Bellingcat has what is called, and we'll pull it up, the Russia-Ukraine monitor map. Let's look at it together. And if you could explain for us, this is such valuable information for us from far away trying to figure out what's going on. When you look at this map, tell us what it shows.
Yeah, so that's a map that's a joint initiative with the Center for Information Resilience. And what we're looking at there are verified pieces of visual evidence of Russian activities, both leading up to the invasion as well as inside Ukraine. The Center for Information Resilience started the map during the buildup prior to the invasion. And since then, we are working with a group of online researchers who are helping us to populate the map, again, with verified information about the conflict as it develops.
So what all sorts of pins there in different color? What do the pins represent?
So the pins represent, again, visual evidence that could be, for example, a video of a cluster munition that has been taken somewhere inside Ukraine. It could be a picture of a Russian tank that somebody captured and then shared on Telegram or Twitter. And they've been color-coded to correspond to the level of violence that you see in the image. Unfortunately, some of the images are very graphic. They show the destruction of war, not just on civilian infrastructure, but on human people, human bodies as well. And so they've been color-coded to take that into account.
All right. You mentioned cluster munitions, and I will ask you about that in more detail. But again, just for people to understand, how have you verified all of these individual incidents?
So at Bellingcat, we've been really busy since the conflict started, both doing what's called the geolocation as well as the kernel location of visual materials. So what that means is that you see a picture on Twitter that somebody says they took in Kiev or in Kharkiv. And what we do is we go to services like Google Maps or any sort of satellite imagery service, and we try to determine if the picture really was taken there. We compare the features that we see in the images to what we see on satellite imagery or mapping services, and that allows us to determine with 100% certainty precisely where images were captured. And once that process is done, you see them appear on the map.
So that is extraordinary to see just how much activity, fighting has gone on just in these 5 days. Now, come back to what you talked about earlier, cluster munitions. What are those, and why specifically are you tracking those?
So cluster munitions are, a way to think of them are bombs that let out smaller bombs. So you end up having not just one explosive device, but dozens and dozens of tiny, smaller explosive devices that can spread out over a wide area and end up indiscriminately targeting, for example, civilian infrastructure like schools and hospitals. And so along with the work that we've been helping with on the map, we also have a large group of volunteers. These are people, ordinary folks who are online, they're on Twitter, they're on Discord, on Telegram, and they are helping us to identify these munitions, like the one that you see on your screen right now, as well as geolocate them. So we can tell precisely what kind of weapons we are looking at there. Weapon remnants, and then we can say exactly where those pictures were taken. And again, that's what feeds the map, and that becomes a pin on the map.
So not just where they were taken, but I'm wondering if it also indicates which country was using them and from where they were fired.
Yes, so we published a report yesterday on our Bellingcat page that looked at precisely that question. So we were able to identify, again, with the help of our volunteers, the locations of cluster munition remnants inside Kharkiv. And in the article, we also were able to determine the direction from which it would have been fired, which were Russian positions that have been firing on Kharkiv since the conflict began.
So that might indicate what? I mean, we've heard from Russia that they're focusing on military installations, but we're hearing a lot about civilian casualties, and you're seeing that borne out in terms of what you're with these cluster munitions.
Precisely, yes. We have seen cluster munitions, again, from the Russian army impacting civilian areas indiscriminately. There was a kindergarten that was hit by a cluster munition bomb just west of Kharkiv over the weekend. And so any claim that the Russian army is simply targeting military installations inside Ukraine is simply not true. That's not what the evidence is showing at all.
So in this war with mis and disinformation and propaganda, it's important to have what has been verified. This is a very valuable tool to help us do that. Giancarlo, hopefully we'll carry on this conversation. More to ask about exactly what you're finding, but thank you very much for this morning's information.
Thank you.
Giancarlo Fiorella from Bellingcat today.